Hey, Tisha. I think I'm waiting on one more person. Can you hear me, Tisha? Let me
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. How are you doing today?
I'm a little under the weather, but I'm okay.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you feel better soon.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel a little better.
Yes, well, I'm glad that you could come today, and I'm streaming on YouTube so that everybody who missed it can go back and watch the video of the bar exam prep thing because I got rid of my cloud recording thing on Zoom. So I just thought this would be a lot easier than trying to make people log in with passwords and stuff like that. So, number one, are you one of the people who've taken the bar exam, or are you one of the people who haven't taken it yet but want to learn more about it?
I want to learn more about it.
Okay, so what year are you right
I am still an aspiring lawyer.
now? Okay. So have you applied to school yet, or are you still in the process of applying?
I'm in the process.
Okay, so that means you haven't applied yet, but you're about to take exams and stuff to try to get in. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So where are you thinking about situationally going to school, or where do you want to pass the bar at?
Um. Well, the two states I have in mind is New York and Florida.
New York and Florida. So both of those are a little bit more complex exams, but they're not impossible. But New York is one of the harder bar exams, and Florida is also known as being a harder bar exam. It's not as hard as New York, and it's definitely not as hard as California. Do you have a law school in mind that you're planning on going to?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That would also be the determining factor.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that by the state would predict how hard the bar exam would be.
Yeah, there's some that are harder than others, and it's not that it's impossible. It's just I think the school bar passage rates of that state aren't as high as other states. So I think that's what determines it's hard or not so hard. So if you like combine all the bar passage rates together, I think that they're less. I don't know that fact for sure, but I know that in Alabama we are like the second or third easiest bar to pass. So a lot of people have come from other state bars that they couldn't pass to pass our state bar. So and they've moved here and everything and been practicing. So I actually struggled to pass the Alabama State Bar my first time. So I mean, every bar is hard relative to the person and then whatever prep materials that you use. Now, one thing that I can tell you that will help you make a deciding factor in your school is every school is actually required, if they are an ABA accredited school, to disclose their bar passage rate on their website. So you can ask them about this, but you can actually go visit. So I would make a list of New York and Florida are the schools that you're looking into because those bars are unique, which means it has going to have unique case law and stuff on there. Then I would look into schools that have high bar passage rates. Now, I know a lot of people tell you to focus on the ranking and all those other things, but as long as your school is accredited and has a high bar passage rate, you can do well. Now, I had a classmate from Alabama Law who ended up transferring to Cooley Law, I believe, in Florida, and she ended up graduating as valedictorian, and she struggled at Alabama, with the law, like the law classes and stuff, but she ended up being able to do it very well at Cooley. So I wouldn't get caught up in the rank stuff if you're trying to like strategize for the bar passage. And a lot of times, most people don't strategize early on for where they're going to take the bar. And so what happens is the bar kind of sneaks up on you because you're just trying to survive law school. And then after you get out of law school, you're just sitting there like, okay, so what now? And that happens way more often than you think to a lot of people because law school kind of hits you really quickly because it depends on where you go, but in a lot of schools, basically, there's just one exam, and that one exam determines your grade for the whole year. So, like in college or in undergrad or even in high school and in middle school and stuff, you had like makeup work you could do, extra credit, homework, mid-test, midterms, and stuff like that. In law school, that's kind of done away with, and you study all year long all the case law that's out there in that particular subject under the professor, and the professor gives you some crazy hypothetical, and you're supposed to be able to pick out the different legal issues along with multiple choice questions that also have crazy hypotheticals in them that you're supposed to be able to pick out the deciding test that they taught you. So much of the bar exam is actually kind of what you experience in law school, except the bar exam is like up to another degree because it's not a professor that taught you how they wanted the exam all year. It's a group of bar examiners who determine the score, and those bar examiners are either voted in or some of them, are appointed. I don't know how every state runs, but they're bar examiners who determine, and they're usually past bar exam, like judges and things like that are determining the questions and stuff that are allowed to be pushed forward on the test. But there's actually a company that pushes forward all the bar exam, like multiple choice question, and I think it's called, I'll find out and I'll send it to you via email if you're one of the registered people. But I think it's like MBCX. It's been a while since I've taken it, so I can't remember the acronym. But there's actually a place where you can purchase like the multiple choice questions and the bar essays and stuff like that. And you can also do these like bar exam prep courses and things while you're in school. My one of my colleagues actually finished school, I think a semester early, and then ended up taking the February bar. And I mean, it was crazy, but she ended up passing, I think, in Georgia. And then she came back, I think, and took Alabama's and passed that one as well. But it's overwhelming sometimes in school because the biggest thing you're working for is to become a lawyer. And that's why a lot of people criticize Kim Kardashian because she skipped the whole law school part and went straight into trying to be a lawyer and then just taking the bar exam. So there are some states, not Alabama, and I don't think it might be in New York and Florida, I don't know, but definitely not in Alabama, where you can just take the bar exam and then you'll have a law license, and then you won't have to go to law school. I don't recommend that. But again, I mean, there's worser things that you could do for a living. There's a lot of law that I mean, I didn't learn in law school, and I had to learn in real practical life. And I had to like, take classes and legal education stuff, but I didn't have a lot of practical experience before my practice. So I wouldn't say it's an impossible task. I will say that you feel a lot more confident after understanding legalese and reading documents and stuff like that over 3 years, where you actually get a chance to interrogate it, have questions, and argue about the text in a different context, because when you get out there in the real world, it's real people's lives, so then you feel a little bit more unsure of yourself. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. I was unsure of myself the very first time I filed a trademark for a client, but I just I made myself my own guinea pig. I filed my own trademarks for myself, and over time I became more confident in being able to articulate stuff with my clients. But I took some classes and programs and coaching programs to prepare me for it. So as long as you do the practical, like coaching or training and stuff to actually prepare you for the area of law you're going to enter, it's not hard to do it, but a lot of people in our industry don't respect most colleagues that do not go to law school. The first question I think at most cocktail parties is, where did you go to law school? And that can be overwhelming for a couple of reasons, but more so trying to get people like really, really interested in, what it is that they have to bring to the table. But the bar exam is one of those things where you've ever been to a deep dive pool and you're like, I don't know about jumping off the edge. That's kind of how law students and law school looks compared to the bar exam, because the big thing that determines whether or not you have a license is that exam. And that exam is kind of like the end all be all. Even if you get your JD, that exam determines if you can call yourself a lawyer or not. And a lot of people don't think about that early on. If you start thinking about that early on, you'll be successful in, preparing at the right schools that can teach you so you can do very well. And you will ask the right questions when you're interviewing and interrogating law schools. But a lot of people don't. Like, funny enough, even though I wasn't planning on going to Alabama for law school where I ended up at, I looked up their bar passage rates and I knew that their bar passage rates were high. So that was one thing that I looked up at all the schools that I applied to make sure that, I had a chance to take the bar exam and be successful. Because you don't want to get out of school and find out, the school didn't really teach you what you were supposed to do on the exam. And a lot of the classes that are required for 1Ls are actually what are going to be required subjects on the bar exam. So again, it's just good to go to a school that thinks like that for their students and has a lot of support programs. And then have you been in school for a while or have you been working for a while?
I've been working,
Okay.
and that has been why I have no choice. But I'm a single mom of
Mm-hmm.
2 children,
Mm-hmm.
and have been back and forth to try to complete, my bachelor's degree. Now I'm a year away from finishing,
Okay.
and I do understand what you're saying because I have a cousin, and when I was living in Florida, I had a close friend.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them went through, finished law school, and did
Mm-hmm.
not pass the bar, and never went back. And I'm talking about 20 plus years, still have not passed the bar,
Mm-hmm.
not really doing law. I mean, my cousin, she worked in different universities as a what do you call it, ethic, um, in charge of director of ethics and adversity and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste time going to law school and then worry about the bar exam. But now that you put that into perspective, if I have to relocate to go to school
Yep.
while I could be successful, then I will have to put that in mind.
Yeah. And if you're a single mom, you might also want to consider law programs that are untraditional. So I know that Seton Hall Law School has like a program where you can do it for like, I think it's like 4 months or a month or something where you only come to school for a limited time and then you're able to work. And then other programs that have night school options. Still try to look for an accredited school just because if you don't go to an accredited school in some states, they won't let you sit for their bar exam. So you have to go to an ABA accredited school. But a lot of the ABA accredited schools don't offer like night classes and weekend classes. But I tell people a lot about the program here in Birmingham. They have like Saturday school. So like you can actually work if you are able to, transfer your job to different states. In Alabama, at least I know about Birmingham School of Law. And I mean, I don't know if you want to stay in Alabama or not, but
But
the
that's the thing. That's it right there.
Mhm.
Once you finish, um, will I be living there and starting a career there? I know nothing about Alabama. I have no
Yeah,
family
that's why I
there.
said I don't know if you want to do it, but I do know that people who are working with kids, they look for those programs that are like night or evening classes for them to be able to work in the daytime and then go to school in the evening. I don't know if you have to, find help or arrange help or stuff, but it usually is like an hour to 2 hours in the evening. So,
Also, I wanted to ask, I, what there was a rumor that was starting to talk about not even taking the LSAT,
mhm,
giving people a chance to, say how biased taking the LSAT has been.
mhm.
So they're thinking about not having to worry about taking the LSAT to get into law school. Are you familiar with this?
Tisha, for some reason your audio is going out. So I think I understood what you said, but let me know if I missed something. So it is been transitioned, but it's just transitioned to another exam. So instead of the LSAT, they're looking at the GRE, which is something that some people took for business school. If they wanted to apply for an MBA program, they had to take the GRE or the GMAT. for business school. I was considering taking that test at one point in time, but you'll still have to, I still believe that there's a test that they'll measure it. But yes, the LSAT, I think, is something that they're starting to take off the table, and they're starting to consider stuff like the GRE. I think at Alabama, if you went to Alabama and then go to Alabama for law school, they'll even look at your ACT score. It's just different in different states, but there are some schools that look at beyond, those things. And in our group, in our, our Law Sister Circle group, Akeisha Anderson, ask Akeisha, I don't know if you looked her up or anything like that, but she actually was the dean of admissions for UCLA Law in California. And she actually has like a pre-law advising program to tell you about your chances of getting into some of these schools that, they seem out of reach, but they actually do take students that have lower LSAT scores. So looking at the LSAT score is as a way for you just to kind of figure out where you fall is a very good experience, I believe. I don't think the LSAT is prohibitively terrible. It does require like 3 months of preparation, but as opposed to the bar exam that also requires about 3 to 5 or 6 months of preparation. I would say like 5 or 6 for the bar exam, but that's just me. That's what it took for me to really be able to focus. But yeah, it's all relative because the exam itself isn't really an indicator for success in my opinion, or most people's opinion who wrote about the LSAT kind of being somewhat biased. And I think that the biggest indicator of whether or not you're going to be successful is how you're able to master the material, how the material is more inclusive of you over time, and then your professor's ability, right, to reach students that, usually fall through the cracks. So it's a mixture of different things at the school, but it's about finding a good fit for you once you're there. And before you're even, applying to schools, not wasting your money or wasting your time and resources applying to schools that you don't feel like would be a good fit for the lifestyle that you need. If you have kids, you have to consider, those programs that are night programs, weekend programs, or you can do day programs, but you got to think about how to get your kids in the evening if a day program allows for you to have class until 5 or 6 o'clock, and you have to pick up your kid at 3. So it's one of those things where you have to weigh a lot of the different obstacles when you're trying to attend law school and you have kids. But at the same time, it's still possible for you to be successful. And I met a lot of people in law school that were able to still maneuver through, even with kids and, having to manage kids on their own. There were a lot of married couples in law school, so there weren't a lot of like single parents that I've met. But when I was in BALSA, which is a Black Law Students Association that you can join when you're in law school, I met a lot of people who were moms and able to, support themselves through law school and their own law practice as lawyers later on. So it's very affirming to be able to, get through, but you have to look for those support elements so that law school doesn't become overwhelming for you and you don't feel isolated. So if you don't know people in that state, that's a deterrent, right, from going. But if you know people in Florida, people in New York, it helps you feel a lot more, safe and secure. So for me, Alabama was good because my family and people were here. So my support team or my support system was here. When I failed the bar, my support system was here until I could get myself back on my feet. So having that option is really important. However, if you go to school in, right, let's say Mississippi, and I know I'm using Mississippi because one of my mentees actually got an offer from Ole Miss Law, and they actually like provided childcare, I think, in their offer and everything. And so if you go to school in Mississippi and you still want to go back to New York, it's possible. You're just gonna have to prepare for the New York bar exam. And everybody's bar exam is different, and the preparation process is different for everyone. But you can go to school anywhere you want as long as it's ABA accredited and still test in the state that you want to be at. And there are some programs, because we're in COVID right now, that might still be virtual that'll allow you some type of, balance. But that's something to think about because right now we're in pandemic world, so virtual and remote school is like a thing right now until an indefinite future. But it's something to think about and consider. I didn't have that option in law school. I had to go physically. There were no virtual options for me, but I think virtual is a lot more difficult, especially just management wise of trying to be on time for
Yeah.
class, even, focus in class. It's very difficult not to be able to
Yeah.
touch a teacher and like, hey, I need to talk to you and I really need to let you know I'm struggling. Like it's just more difficult that
Yeah.
way. So that's what I
That's
would say.
not gonna be an option for me. I definitely will be in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is that I would go ahead and make a list of some I would just type in ABA accredited law schools in New York and Florida, and then I would go through those schools as websites, okay, and then start reaching out to them or looking up their bar exam results. But my biggest thing for you is trying to figure out kind of where you want to be. Is it Florida? Is it New York? Because either way, you still have to figure out your strategy for after the bar exam. So if you have a lot of support in New York, I usually tell people support or support system is a huge factor in law school for me. It's one of those things that I rate as like a top, top three things for myself is that making sure I have a support system nearby. I don't think I would have made it through law school without, being able to leave and go see my parents on the weekend or go see some family or somebody to kind of help me through some of the harder parts of law school, just kind of getting frustrated with the material. So for me, that was important. The other important thing was the cost. I mean, you can still take out loans for law school, but I'm telling you right now, I don't think you want to be like me with about $150,000 worth of loans to repay. And I still was factoring in costs. But what I realized is that I had to live somewhere where I would have peace. So I took out extra loans to help me pay for, my apartment when I was up there. And that cost me later on, you know, in the long run. But hopefully with Biden and these changes, we might see some new public student loan forgiveness. So we're moving into that era. But that's something to really consider is the cost itself. And then just the support system at the school. If the school is helping or trying to help like moms and single moms and supporting you and providing the opportunity for you to be able to support your kids and stuff like that and have a schedule that meets your needs, that's a good fit, right? That's a positive future for you. But if you don't have that, if you're not able to, move in that direction, then you're going to have a lot of difficulties later on with trying to be able to pass the bar. Because again, schools that think about those things, they help you build the resources and the networks to be able to have support during the bar exam. Schools that don't think about those things, what happens is you finish law school and then the bar exam is like on your own. So the goal is to see if your school has those types of resources in place or people that are similarly situated to you. Because if they do, then there's a support system available to you. And if they don't, then you got to kind of make your own. But I believe that anybody can be successful because if there's not something at your school, you can put it there. You can instigate it there. You can add it to your school. A lot of people don't think like that, but I always like to think, it's me. Like it's on me to add it if I want to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So, to get into the bar exam, just learning more about it, it's an exam. In Alabama, it was 2 days. It used to be a 3-day exam. In some states, it's still a 3-day exam. There is a essay portion. There's two different types of essay portions. The first essay portion is like when you have an open book exam, but it's really not an open book exam. It's about you being able to read through documents very quickly and also write very quickly. So they give you two MPT problems to solve. And those MPT problems are a multi-practice test problem, but it's a packet. So it's a packet of a hypothetical. And at the end, they're going to ask you to produce some type of written document or written thing to show your legal writing skills. And sometimes they'll ask for a memo. Sometimes they'll ask for an advice letter, and you have to know how to write those different types of letters the way they want them. And you have to know how to determine in the packet what's the most relevant and what's not relevant for you to use in your paper. But I think we only get 3 hours to do it. So you have an hour and a half per packet, and you still have to figure out how to write it all down before the end of that 3 hour time slot. And those packets are not small, they're thicker packets that you have to sift through. And then you have to outline and still write. Now, those points are like the give you points on the exam, because all the law is given to you. Everything that you're supposed to use to write the answer is right there in front of you. But you have to know how to read it, and you have to know how to, use it to your advantage on the exam. Now, most people struggle here, and that's why I got a bar exam tutor the second time, and he basically made me aware of the different types of MPTs, and so I was less overwhelmed. The second thing is the MEEs. MEE is your multi-state, I think, exam. I don't know what the EE stand for. It's been so long since I've been in the bar exam that I've just tried to forget it, because it's one of those bad memories I don't want to go back to. I remember the law. That's all that matters, is I remember the law that I learned for it. But the MEE is 6 different essays. Okay. So they're going to be a small subset of a hypothetical. It might be a page, it might be 2 pages or 3 pages sometimes. And you'll have like questions to answer. In those questions, you're going to answer them in essay form under something called an under, here, therefore format, which means you write, when they ask the question, under X law, here, use the facts in the case, therefore my conclusion. There are specific ways that you write an exam and legal papers that you don't learn in school. So the way that we wrote papers back in school, you have to kind of unlearn that, which is why a lot of people recommend you go to law school and then try the bar exam so it's less overwhelming. But it's an under, here, therefore method. Once you master it, it's pretty easy to kind of like, do, but you'll only get better at it over time. In these essays, the law is not really given to you. It's up to you to remember what the actual law is. But there are facts in the case or the example they give you that's supposed to signal in your brain what type of law they're asking about and how it applies to this particular case. In those cases, it's just about you remembering the law itself, what the rule is when this sort of facts happens. And that will only happen through multiple, doing essays over and over again and being able to recognize it from like certain facts. The last one is the MBE, and MBE is usually like it's a across all the states. So if there's I think it's like UBs, different types of uniform bar exams. If they have a uniform bar exam, if you score a high enough on both of these exams in one state, your score could actually make you eligible for a law license in another state. So the goal for you is to have a high bar exam score so that you can basically go into other states. Now, that does mean that you'll have to sometimes take other bar exams in their states, but you'll have an abbreviated bar exam in some of those states if you do. Some of the states you don't have to. You get a certain score and you just have to pay the fees every year and you'll be barred. So everyone's goal is to have a high bar exam score. I was just happy. I was thank you laude when I passed the bar exam. So I wasn't like summa cum laude bar exam score when I passed. I was thank you laude. So I didn't have no other states I was getting into. But the good news about passing the bar exam and going to an accredited school is that after 5 years, there's a lot of states that do something called reciprocity, which allows for you to take your license and the fact that you've been practicing law for 5 years straight, and apply for law licensure in their state because you've been in good standing with your bar for 5 years and you've been in practice for 5 years. So there are some states that actually allow for you to do that without having to take their bar exam. You still got to pay the fees every year, but it gives you the ability to kind of expand your reach and your territory of clients. It's very cool, the bar exam, when you think about it, because it really helps you understand how many different states you can be licensed in, and how they talk about lawyers aren't licensed in that state. That's all it means, is that the bar exam just gives you that vehicle to be licensed in so many different states and make your JD go beyond just your state or beyond where you are right now. So it might give you access to jobs in, Florida, because you're licensed in Florida and you're licensed in New York. So it gives you access to different opportunities that other people wouldn't have. Other than that, I mean, the bar exam is more of about how much you practice. So if you don't pass, okay, so we're going to talk about worst case scenario first and then best case scenario. So if you don't pass, then the work that you have to do is really about how much you practice every day. When I passed the bar exam, I was doing about 105 questions a day, about three essay exams a day and one NPT a day, which took me about 4 to 5.5 hours. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I took a nap around 9, and I was going to Starbucks. I wasn't going to a library because usually in the bar exam room, even though it's supposed to be quiet, people are clicking their pens or doing some distracting stuff. So I practiced in real life scenario so I wouldn't, get distracted on the bar exam. The other part was I was in a bar exam tutoring program. So we broke down each of the common essay topics and common bar exam topics by week. So we did like criminal law one week, we did property one week, we broke it down by week. And we actually practiced only those essays and only those MPTs for that week. And it was very helpful for me to do it that way because it was less overwhelming. Now, what I did differently than when I studied for it the first time was the second time I actually didn't stop studying. So my bar exam tutor told us to double up what we were doing. So by the time February came, he said that really you shouldn't be doing less work in February, which is when I took the second attempt. I did more. So on the month of the bar exam, I actually did 210 questions a day. And then I also did the three essays. I mean, I did 6 essays and I did 2 MPTs per day. So I doubled up on everything per day. And that took me like 8 hours per day. But I was doing it and I had somebody to go to Starbucks with that kept me accountable, that was serious. I don't know that she took the bar exam again after I was able to pass, but I think that there were some other barriers for her. But she was one of my study partners, and it really helped to have somebody that was there with you to watch your stuff, to make you feel less overwhelmed. I used to make my lunch, my little sandwiches and chips and stuff. And I mean, it's really a process where you have to kind of shift your mind from an exam like you took for school and an exam in which, you're preparing for your livelihood. And so I just had to take the exam and look at it differently because a lot of the programs like Kaplan and Barbary and stuff like that, they have cool programs, but they don't really show you how to, master the exam. That's usually not stacked very well for minority bar takers. And so I had to figure out a way to increase my chances. And the guy who gave us, did the tutoring, he had failed the bar like 6 times, but he was a math major back in school. And so he figured out the game of statistics with the bar exam and realize that there's patterns that you can identify and what type of questions are going to be on the exams and things like that. And that was more important to me than just taking a test and memorizing everything because memorizing everything was overwhelming. And also memorizing everything without a strategy was a little bit like, word vomit on the page. So it's good to have strategies when it comes to the bar exam. It's also good for you to think about the things that come after it. So, for example, with the bar exam, even if we pass, right, we had an ethics portion that we had to take. So we had like another online CLE training I had to get through in order for me to be fully out of the doghouse and ready to be licensed. I had to pay fees, like I think it was like $200 or $300 per license, like the actual printed license. There was all sorts of things and hurdles I had to jump through once I passed the bar. But I had to understand what I was going to do with my license. And I think that'll be a good motivational tool, even when you're trying to prepare for the bar. Ask yourself, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to start a business? One thing that nobody really told me that I could do, that I should have done while I was in law school, I probably been more lucrative than I am now, is you can start a business, like some type of business where you're helping people and you're developing your clientele before you leave law school. And a lot of people don't tell you to start your own firm, but once you have a law license, you basically have your own possible business. You have your own legal consulting business with your license. You can go in and work for anybody as a legal consultant or a lawyer. And so, because of that, it's good for you to have a good base or a customer or client base already built in. So, think about consulting businesses, thinking about businesses that you can do stuff that doesn't involve legal work, but one day you could add legal work to it. And that's what, some of the people who coach me now, that's what they did. They started like a LLC formation business, which is basically a consulting business. And when they were ready to start their law practice also did LLCs. And they didn't do the LLC formation business through a consulting firm anymore. So it's something that you'll be able to convert over later, but to start thinking about ways that you can make money, with what you have now, the skills that you have right now that could expand into clientele. That's something that I just wish, I was more prepared for after I passed, is just knowing that it's all about building clientele. It's about networking. Going to a lot of networking events will help you. Even past the bar exam, like you have to know attorneys that will do you a favor, like let you work their cases or let you work on stuff for them. And I went to, I think, a networking event through one of the group meetings I was in. And we were all out one night. I think we came back to somebody's room and we all ordered pizza and we were just talking about stuff. And I was talking about what I needed. And one of the guys just listed out people in Alabama who would help me if I just called them. And to this day, that's how I found mentors here in Alabama. So I'm telling you from experience, it's not one of those things like you pass the bar exam and like everything, like the sky opens up. And, it's really, really difficult, especially for you to find people willing to pay you what you're worth. Once I passed the bar, I had a 22,000 a year job offer and a 5,000 for 6 months offer. Those were like the two offers that I had, realistic. And I was just like, yeah, no, I have $150,000 worth of debt. I would rather try to figure out how to do this law firm thing on my own than take jobs that pay so little and require so much. So you have to think about those things now. And when you do that, it makes, how you go through law school a lot more purposeful. And it also makes it possible for you to make that way for yourself within law school. And I think that I wish, the reason why I wrote the book that I wrote that book, Dear Future Lawyer. A lot of people have read it. If you haven't, it's okay. But I wrote the book because I needed somebody to kind of tell me what to expect in law school. And law school wasn't one of those things where it was hard just because it was hard. It was just it's like a different world you're going to. And it's good to prepare and learn the rules of how that world operates. And I didn't have that. Like my mom isn't a lawyer, my dad isn't a lawyer. I had a cousin who was a lawyer, but all she ever told me was don't be a lawyer. So I didn't really have a lawyer to encourage me to be a lawyer. And because of that, I wanted to have some opportunities to encourage others with, the books I wrote and all of the groups and stuff that I made since then and all the different, speaking events that I do. But the goal really is to make sure that you have your money together, right? Because the bar exam, I think it cost me with hotel fees, because I had to pay for a hotel, it cost me about $2,500 to $3,500 just to take the exam once. And I had to take the exam twice. So overall, it cost me about, $7,000 just to get my license because I had to register for the exam. I had to pay for the hotel room for, I think, at 3 or 4 nights. And then I also had to pay for tutoring programs, law books, law programs, and things like that. Now, one advantage that I had over other people is that I was a Kaplan Bar Review rep when I was in law school. So if they have that option, please do it. But I basically got a chance to have a free bar course because I used to sell Kaplan to other people. Um, I know that seems like, what is those things? Those people sell you Mary Kay. I go to Mary Kay for bar exam courses. And so it was fine, but it was a hack that I learned so that I wouldn't go into debt trying to prepare for the bar exam. I don't know if that's helpful so far, but tell me how you're feeling so we can make sure we're good.
Everything you shared is very insightful and something that I can definitely use and ponder on going forward.
Yeah, and then you'll have this video, so you can save this video, on your phone, and just go back and look at it whenever you want. I'll also have a video I'm going to send to you where I talk about, what to tell people. I did this in advance of this meeting, so I did a video on my Dear Future Lawyer page on Facebook where I talked about this topic as well. So I'll share that with you post this as well. But I mean, really, the bar exam is one of those things where if you prepare ahead and you start making sure you pick schools and are intentional about the schools that you pick right now, you'll have a chance of being successful in the future. A lot of people don't prepare, and so they end up at schools that don't prioritize them, that never really have any programs for support. And then they end up kind of frustrated because after they graduate, there's not really assistance for the bar exam. And you want to look for those things. If you feel right now like you're overwhelmed or you're trying to figure out how to do this, you don't want to go to a school where there's not a bar exam or something to help their students. There's not some type of assurances, and they just leave you out to dust and let Kaplan and Barbary and all those people take over. That's fine, but that's not what you need. You need to know that there's a network of alumni, people who are actively trying to help students pass the bar. And that's something that you can be clear about going forward. And I wish, a lot more students were able to do that, especially minority students going to these schools, because then you wouldn't go to a school to be that diversity student if that school didn't have the resources support that you needed. Now, I went to Alabama, but Alabama made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. Like I could have owed way more money, but I didn't because I went to Alabama. And so everything is different and every opportunity is unique. Okay. So making sure that you look at your bar exam and whatever programs that you're trying to join, making sure they have high bar passage rates, making sure that you figure out bar exam tutors if possible. If you think that you're one of those people who would need a tutor, start vetting them now. You can do all of that to prepare yourself for law school itself. Because the thing is, you might find that you can do a Kim Kardashian. You don't have to go, right? Or you might find that you can't do that. But at the same time, you can go to law school in a place that will be supportive of you, your kids, and the future that you want for yourself. And that's really important. And ask questions. Do make the admissions team know who you are, but don't call them every day or call them frequently. Just make sure they know who you are. Like, hey, I'm Tisha McCoy, I'm trying to go to law school and I want some more information. And make them have a conversation with you. Email the admissions counselors and ask them questions about their programs, and do some research on each of these programs to figure out which one is a good fit for you. I tell most of the girls in the group about 5 non-negotiables need to be on your list before you go and call them. And then you need to ask them about one of the 5 of these non-negotiables. And then ask them if they have the other ones as well. And that will help you eliminate some of these schools. And you can make like a T chart. Okay, well, this one's got this one doesn't have this. And then you'll be able to make more informed decisions when it comes to law school. And that's how it becomes less overwhelming. If you come up with a list of stuff that you absolutely need in order for you to be successful, then you won't just go to any school. You'll go to the school that's a good school for you. And I mean, I ended up at Alabama, but that was on my safety school. That wasn't really on my top list. And I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, they have a high rank. I was really just thinking they're in Alabama, where my safety support network is. And if I need safety support, that's where I'll be. All the other schools that I ended up applying to, I was applying to school, UCLA, I applied to Harvard, I applied to all these other schools, and I didn't really get into most of the schools that I applied to until, a little bit later. Like the very first schools that I thought I wanted to go to, UCLA took the longest to get back to me. I really thought I was going to get into UCLA. But like, this is the thing. It doesn't matter what schools said no, as long as the schools that you need to say yes said yes. You can leverage. You can use the fact that you got waitlisted at one school to get you a higher scholarship at another school. And that's what I did. I got a wait list at one school, and I knew those schools were top competitors of each other. And I told that other school, look, I'm going to make my ultimate decision based off of finances. And that school came back and offered me more money. Now, I never got into the other school. I got waitlisted. But that's the thing. You have to think about, strategizing to get into the school and then strategizing to make sure that you have support. And there's not always going to be schools that have support. Like you might have to be the person that forces them to create the support. But it's important. Like Alabama just got tutors for their students, like to help them with the classes. We've been needed that. but you have to push for it, and you have to be around a student body and a student administration or school administration that's open to helping students that fall through the cracks. And I always thought that was very important. And I think that it's probably the most important thing. Like, there are not like phone calls like this in law school, because if there would be a lot more capable and, excited students in the school. And so because they don't have these types of preparations and they can't ask these questions unfiltered, it feels overwhelming. But because you've been able to ask, and I mean, I'm not trying to speak words into your mouth, but if you had this more often in law school, you might feel more excited about the application process. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So like that's what's missing. And that's why I wanted to try to bridge that, that missing spot, because I know that I didn't get this. I didn't get any type of preparation. It was kind of like, okay, you got to take the bar exam. They make you pre-register it for your 1 year, and then you forget about it, and then you got to take the bar exam for real. Like, that's how it happens. And so it's good to kind of think about these things before, because then you can make sure that the school that you go to, right, does a good job of preparing you for these types of exams. And you ask them questions that makes them think, oh, wow, maybe we should have a program. Well, do you have anything for single moms? Do you have a support program? Do you have some type of, study group and stuff for, like, people who, work and they have to, kids and stuff? Or do you have any of those programs? Or ask your classmates, hey, do we have like a group of people who are moms and stuff to get together and study? And you will be surprised that creating your own support group and support networks can actually have a lasting change. So even though I was pushing for that all throughout my law school career, the fact that one of the BALSA groups finally carried it over into making it happen, that's really important, because students not having the ability to get help and ask for, free help, not paid help, not paid tutors, but free help from their school, is really a barrier for people being successful in law school, in my opinion. And so that's what, it's been a big change and a big shift. And so for you to even get on here, it's Thursday night. You could be doing anything on your Thursday night, but you came on here and you like decided this is what you wanted to do. That's what's going to help you set yourself apart from everyone else. Because I mean, you got unfiltered questions with me. I mean, anybody could have came. This whole thing was open, right? But it's just about making sure you're in a position to listen, and also making sure that people are aware of what you bring to the table. And you bring a lot to the table just by tuning into this type of stuff and asking these questions, so that when you do apply, you're not applying, just kind of blind, or taking an LSAT just to find out how you do, because those aren't really things that are strategy for you. The best strategy for you to take is one where you'll have the most support, one that is useful for you, and then one that's going to prepare you better for what type of exams you're going to take. You're going to take a hard exam, you want to make sure that the school has the rigor that will prepare you for a very difficult exam and also support you. So I hope that was helpful.
Well, it's always helpful listening to you speak.
And
Always.
And the last portion of this is an interest meeting. So I'm working on trying to put together a conference, a few conferences, but I do them in the spring. So I wanted to know if you were one of the people who would be
Yes, I
interested
was gonna.
in.
Yes, I was gonna say. Yeah, I saw that in
Yes,
the
ma'am.
chat. Yes, ma'am. I'm down. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, once I get the everything kind of finalized, I'll let you know. But the one conference that happens every year is called Trademark That Thursdays. It's a virtual summit. I look for 12 trademark lawyers, really 11, because I'm one of the people who's always speaking. But I look for 12 trademark lawyers, one that's going to be my keynote speaker, that are all minority speakers, and I do a CLE. And it's all virtual. I did it through AirMeet this past year, and it was very successful. Even though I hate AirMeet's price and their customer service, I'll probably have to use them again, because I've never found any comparable except for, I think, Hoover is one. And I might consider Hoover or other ones, but I really liked how AirMeet worked, and it was easy to operate for me. So Hoover, I think, got hacked by those like people that do the hacking and stuff in the systems. So I wasn't very happy with Hoover, and I told them I wasn't going back. So I did that last year. It usually happens at the end of April, beginning of May. It's usually like the last Saturday or Friday and Saturday of April. And that's usually how we handle that. The event that I'm thinking of hosting, the mastermind, um, it's supposed to help people who want to start law firms. The goal was to try to do it this year. I had a lot of people who are interested in doing it this year, but I don't think that I have the bandwidth to launch it by this year. Just because I mean we don't have except for like this month, which is almost over. So we have October, November, and December, and people start holidays around Thanksgiving onward. So the easiest or the earliest I could do it would be that first or second week of December. And that really is supposed to be like a way for people to launch their own law firms. That's what I'm supposed to be doing with another attorney. I don't know, since I haven't heard back from that attorney, whether or not we're ready to launch it by December. But she told me, whatever I want to do. So if I get a group of people together and, even if it's just one, two, and three, if it was just us three, if we get it together, that one will ultimately be paid. The one in the spring is free, but that one will be paid and it'll be a mastermind. So there may be an opportunity for like some type of like stipend for working in that program. So that's something that I'm really trying to put together because I think that my experience with branding and trademarks, and then her experience with being in practice for 12 years, is very helpful. And hoping will help people launch. And so I think we just have to figure out a good title and stuff for it. So if you want to strategize or you have time, usually I don't work on Mondays. Mondays is my admin day. So if you have free time on Mondays or Thursdays, my trademark that Thursday day, but I'm willing to give up an hour or two on that day and try to work on some stuff. If you're willing to do that, it usually won't take more than 5 hours per week, and then probably 10 hours per week closer to the event. And then on the week of the event, it might be 20 hours per week, just trying to get all the random, knickknacks and press release stuff and all the speakers and it's a lot of stuff to put together that last week of trying to put on virtual events or real events, because this might be an in-person event that you can coordinate virtually with all the registrations and stuff. But those are the two events that I have right now coming up. One's paid and one's unpaid, and one's about trademarks and one's about launching a law firm. So if you're interested in either one of those, all you have to do is send an email to the email Nina the Last Brand at gmail.com, and let us know that you're interested in that. And I will make sure that I let people know in the group later on, probably not tonight, but that email I just put in the chat for us here on Zoom. But it is Nina the Last Brand at gmail.com. And if you're interested in either one of those conferences, definitely want to have you as part of the team. I think it's important. The last one that I'll probably do, Tisha, is related to sports and entertainment and the NIL industry. So name, image, and likeness. I'm going to probably do like a VIP day where we work with athletes and try to help them with their names. And then we also work with music artists and things like that. So if those are interested, that is also going to be a paid event. It'll be something separate from my law firm, of course. It's all my event planning business. But again, if those are things that you're interested in, just email Nina the Last Brand at gmail.com. And I'm so happy that you came on to the bar exam review thing. And y'all, if you didn't make it here, please come to the next one. Next one, we are not doing any studying. We are going to watch the Jordan Peele, Wendell, and Wild and Wendell, one of them, on Netflix. It's the first Black looks like the Nightmare Before Christmas thing, but it's Black people. So we're going to be doing that together, fun, using Netflix Party. You will need a laptop. You have to have a laptop to participate in Netflix Party, but you can actually have a Netflix watch party through Netflix on your computer, where we can all watch it together on the same screen if you have Netflix Party. So I'm just gonna say I'll see you guys soon. And Tisha, anything you want to say before we leave?
Thank you for your time.
No problem. And go tell everybody in the group they missed an awesome event because I was ready. I was ready. I saw the time at 7:55 and I said, I'm gonna do it. Even if it's from my phone, they'll still love me. And I mean, I really did. I was hoping it. I said, if it's just one guy, it don't matter, but I'm gonna do it for the one. So I'm glad that you guys are here. Even if you were watching on YouTube, but you didn't join in on the Zoom, still glad that you guys are here. So appreciate you. And I will see you guys in October, but we probably won't go live. I don't know about the streaming effects of going live, but we'll see. But we will be doing a Netflix party. So I'll talk to you soon, girl. And make sure you go
Okay.
watch Hocus Pocus 2 tomorrow on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that you guys learned a lot about, getting through the bar exam and also all the amazing conference stuff that we have to go. But other than that, y'all, it's been wonderful. And I will talk to you guys next week, next time.